That is nuts. That is crazy. Fun fact, when I started on YouTube, I was using a Nikon camera. Then I moved over to Canon, moved over to Sony, and then now I use Sony and Lumix as a mixture because they both deal with every situation that I need them to deal with, whether it's stills, whether it's videos. Now, Nikon offered to send me this out to review, the Z8, which is a really good camera. So far, so good. Feels really nice in hand. It's lightweight. It's smaller than the bigger brother, the Z9, but without losing loads of those specs that you'd expect on your camera. This can be a professional camera and can also be a camera that you just use as an enthusiast if you really want to do that, but it's more of a professional camera in my opinion. It's got 45.7 megapixel sensor in there, which is really good for eye resolution. And I took some pictures that I posted on Instagram. Yes, I know it's Instagram. And some people who are photographer in my community actually messaged me saying, was that taken on the Nikon? Because they knew I had this camera and it was super high res, very sharp, looks really good in terms of detail. The skin tone, everything looks really good. So they noticed that straight away, which is some of the features that I love about the Z8. Let's talk about the body. Let's talk about what you actually get on this and how easy it is to use. For me, I mainly focus on photography for this because that's what I really want to use it for. So there's not going to be a lot of video-esque sort of talk in this video. So if you're looking for a video review of this, sorry, you might have to switch off right now and go watch another video for that. But this will focus a lot on photography. Let's talk about the body. So the camera itself, in comparison to the Z9, this is meant to be a smaller, lighter version of the Z9. So the flagship Nikon Z9. With this one, is lighter, it's smaller, it's better packaged in my opinion for just taking out the bag, shoot stuff and off you go. But that also depends on the lens that you've got on there. So for example, I've got big glass on here at the moment. It's a 24-70 2.8 aperture lens, which works really well. I actually really like the lens. It's the first time I've seen a little digital sort of thing on the lens, which shows you your range as well, so your focal length. You can even let it show you things like your aperture that you're shooting at and all that stuff to the T. So that way you can quickly look at it. As much as I liked it on the lens, I didn't actually look at it because every time I'm looking through the viewfinder, that gives me all the information that I need to see. So I don't even know why I'd need that in the first place. Maybe if there's a production person with me, they might actually look at that and see what I'm shooting at. Maybe that's why they've got it there. But if you know, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. One of the things I love about the Z8 as well is the little display on top of it. I missed that on my Sony cameras. It doesn't have it. Some Lumix have it, some don't. My S5 Mark II don't have it. So for me, having that there, I really like it. It means I can easily just switch on, see all my quick settings on here, and it's just really nice to have that. I miss that having on the camera. This is like the mirrorless version of the D850. So if anyone's ever used that before, it's not mechanical, it's fully electronic, which we'll talk about that further down the line in this video. And there's loads of buttons in here that you can customize. So you got, for example, there's 2 buttons on the front there by the grip. It's a single grip camera. So you can customize those to be what you want it to be. Up top, we have some buttons there that are very obvious. So you got your shutter button there, which is also integrated in with the on and off switch, and the light as well. So if you want to turn the light bulb on so you can see what you're pressing, you can also do that. We've got a little scroll there, which you can customize, I think, but I've just set it to default. So that controls, actually, let me set the moment. This controls my f-stop. So that's what that's set to. Then you got the record button there if you're going to be shooting video, ISO button, and your exposure buttons there, compensation button. So to control that, you'd have to press and hold it, and then you can use this front wheel there to adjust the ISO. So you can see it changing up top there, and also on the back and through the viewfinder. This side of the camera, let me just move that over a little bit for you guys. And then we have a bracketing button, we have a high frame button so you can shoot different modes. So you've got different mode button. And white balance. It's kind of strange that they've got a dedicated white balance button, but it is there because I think that's a waste of a button. That could go from manual to auto instead. That would have been a better option because you can always set your function buttons there to do that for you. But it's there if you need to do so. I barely use it because my white balance, once it's set, it's set. And then on the side there, we have loads of ports available. So we've got PD ports, we've got 2 USB-C ports, so you can use one for data transfer, the ones for charging it as well. So that's really good to have those 2 there because one of them you can just get an adapter for HDMI over USB-C if you want to do that. But we also have a full HDMI port, which honestly, that's really good to have. You got your microphone button and headphone ports, sorry, not button, ports on the side there as well. And this is actually quite good as well. So I wouldn't worry about this falling off or anything like that, but it's good, especially if you're going to be using it when it's raining, that will protect the ports if you need to do so. We have another button there, which you can customize as well. You got this remote control port up there as well, which is nicely secured away, really good. And then you got your button there for display settings and so on that side. Over on the back, we have plenty of buttons as well. So we have another function button there, which you can use. You can modify what that does as well. You got a little delete button there for when you are going through your photos. We have a display button here, which allows you to change what you see on the view, obviously. So you can turn it completely off or go through it, cycle through it. On the electronic viewfinder, you got this little focus mode button, dial here, which allows you to make sure that things are in focus when you look through there. So in terms of that electronic viewfinder, you're looking at 3690K dot electronic viewfinder. That supports 60 frames per second refresh rate. And you also have 100% coverage, and it gives you 3000 nits of peak brightness in there. So that's really sharp, very true to life, and really good. On this bit here, on this main display, before I go through the other buttons, this is a 4-axis display. So this is tilting, so this is 3.2 inch. It has 2100K dot touchscreen, and also this supports your fast frame rate and stuff. It has no blackout as well, so it's blackout free. So when you're doing those rapid shots in between frames, it gives you exactly what you're pressing. So you're not gonna get that pause in between them, which is really good. This is nice and responsive. So like you see, you can tilt down like so. It goes all the way up like that as well. And we can even, if I remember accurately, we can even go to the side like so, which does a good job. But when it comes to people that vlog, for example, you can't see yourself. So it doesn't go like your Sony cameras, for example, some of the Sony camera, it doesn't go all the way to the front, so you'll be able to see yourself and see what you're actually shooting, which is a shame. But for people that are shooting photography and you want to shoot different angles and stuff like that, you want to get in anyone's way, that's more than enough in terms of the 4-axis that you've got on there. Moving on to the other buttons, like I was saying, we spoke about already, you can switch between video recording and photography through there. You got your autofocus settings button there. Then you got this little joystick that you can use to control things. So if I was in menu, I can use this to move up and down like so to select different things. And you can also, if I go back to menu, you can also use this as well to move up and down, left and right, entirely up to you. So those buttons are really useful, magnifying buttons there, menu, play, and so on. So it's pretty straightforward in terms of all the buttons that you've got. Notice some customizable buttons and also the default ones on there. So in terms of storage here, we have 2 card slots, one SD, one CF Express Type B ports. So again, if you're going to be recording like 8K 60, you want to use your CF Express, and if you're going to be shooting high frame rate and stuff like that, you want to be using that for those. But for stills, yeah, absolutely fine. Just stick your SD card, a fast SD card in there, and you're good to go. On the bottom, we have our battery there. I kind of like this little Pac-Man logo thing there. I don't know if that's purposefully done on purpose, who knows. But yeah, so we've got a battery nicely secured in there, and this is a ENEL15C battery, and it's a 2280 milliamp hour battery, so this runs all day long when I'm shooting stills especially, but video's different, so it depends on what you're shooting. If you're shooting 8K, for example, you'll be able to shoot up to 90 minutes, I think, on the battery, which is really good. You can shoot a whole interview just shooting in 8K 60 frames per second, which is impressive. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of just around the device itself. Really nice on ergonomic. The ergonomics are really good. It feels really nice in hand. I really like the look of it. And honestly, this is going to be a tough one to give back to Nikon when I'm done with it. Let's go through the menu as well to see what you get. I think it's only right we do so. So if you're thinking of buying one of these. So you got photo shooting menu. Again, the menu on this is very straightforward, very easy to use compared to a Sony. I'm okay with Sony because I'm used to it because I use that all the time. But obviously on this is slightly different. So you've got like all this menu, file name in. But the one we want to look at is your image quality. So we can shoot RAW. You can shoot all these formats. Let's go to the top. It's got RAW and JPEG, high efficiency one with fine, got fine. If you choose the one with the star, it's basically high efficiency, but it's nearly as identical to lossless compression. So just bear that in mind. So it might be that the quality is slightly different, but it's still almost like the lossless compression whilst saving the file size. So that'll be useful for that if that's something that you want. If we go back, you got RAW mode, which I always shoot it in. So you got the .nef raw file, which you can put into Lightroom or Photoshop afterwards. But these are all the image quality settings that you can have if you wish to do so. RAW recording, you can put that on as well, so you can have lossless compression, high efficiency, and then high efficiency with that little star on there again. You've got ISO sensitivity settings, so here we can go all the way to ridiculous amounts. So if you just do without flash, you can see how far we can go up. Look at that. 25/600, and then you go plus extra, going all the way to the top there. And then we've got white balance settings, or you can use the button up top to change that settings. But yeah, you've got direct sunlight, shade, etc. And then you can also choose your own if you wish to do so. You can set picture control as well, so auto, standard, neutral, vivid, etc. I always put auto because I just have no time to keep changing it. And then you got different like creative picture control, almost like filters to change the look and feel of what you're shooting. But I was just having auto, and that does a great job when I'm shooting. When it comes to video recording, we can get 8K at 60 frames per second on it uncropped, and that will give you 12-bit internal recording as well to a CF Express card. That will be using ProRes RAW HQ, and there's also Nikon's new NRAW format as well, which allows you to shoot those 8K formats. So if we go in video file format and we go to NRAW 12-bit there, which is the new one, we can then go into frame rate, size, and file size. Frame rate and frame size. We can then shoot 8K 60, as you can see there. Or we can go 4K 120 frames per second, which is, honestly, that is ridiculous, really. It means you can shoot some really cool stuff, get creative with whatever you want. But I'm just scrolling through so you can see all the frame rate that's available when you shoot NRAW. If we come back out and we go back to ProRes, let's do HQ 12-bit. That's fine. We'll see options available as well. So 4K 60, and let's scroll down. So you can shoot 24 frames, 25, 4K 60. And if we go back to ProRes RAW, we do 10 bits. That will give you, open you up to just normal 4K stuff. So again, it just depends what you want and how big your storage size is. But there's plenty of options available here for what you want to shoot and what format. Video quality when shooting, you can shoot high quality and normal as well. Image area can change, ISO sensitivity settings, white balance, etc. Just the usual stuff. You can also shoot H-log format on here as well, so you can shoot flat if you want to shoot flat. So you can do more in terms of post editing afterwards, which is pretty cool. In terms of stabilization, this is really good when it comes to stabilization as well. I mean, it's electronic shutter that you've got on there. You've also got vibration reduction, which allows for extra in terms of when you're shooting on the go and you want to shoot handheld. You can just change those settings, so that will help you with that. And then the rest of the settings you just have to go through if you do get one of these. So, you know, custom settings and stuff like that, playback options, more settings in terms of time zone, and it's got Wi-Fi, it's got Bluetooth, so plenty of connectivity options on there for you. So that's pretty much it on the menu. Very easy to use. Loads of options in terms of shooting video, shooting photos. And I think the next thing really is to show you some samples of the photos and talk about my experience with that. With the Z8, there's so much settings, there's so much to go through on here. In fact, let's take it outside and actually do some test shots and show you. So this has animal detection mode. So for example, look at this ducks or whatever animal this is. They're just swimming their way in the water, and we can just snap it just right on cue. This one's swimming over. So I've got it in animal detection mode, so it will pick it up very easily. And for something that's swimming so fast as well, I can then change the release mode and have it continuous. Let's do 20 frames per second because I'm shooting RAW here. Shooting video on the Z8 is a different story though, because you need the right card to shoot in those high frame rate, high data rates modes that you can shoot on there. Unfortunately, I don't have a CF Express card with me to test the 8K feature, but I can still test 4K at 60 frames per second and see what that actually looks like as well. So it's still really good quality, so that's not a problem at all. What's good about this is we do have a really good stabilization. So shooting handheld is not a problem at all. Things are very stable. So yeah, I mean, It works really well, but let me know what you think of the sample. So, like I was saying, there's so much to go through on this camera, and it does a lot more than I would probably talk about in this video. But for me, let's talk more about the photo. So this can shoot some rapid shots as well. So if you're going to be shooting sports, so for example, people skating, playing football, I don't know, whatever sports you're into, shooting F1, for example, this would be great for that. So in RAW, you can shoot 20 frames per second, and then in JPEG, you can go all the way up to 120 frames per second. So you can shoot, literally, you depress the shutter button, and it will shoot like 1,000 RAW photos whilst doing that. So again, bear in mind though, there are different sizes here. So like 11 megapixel when you're shooting certain frame rate, etc., and so on and so forth. So it will affect the resolution that you're gonna get. But if you wanna keep that 45.7 megapixel, this will still do some high frame rate, and it's ridiculous. Like in fact, so 20 frames per second because I'm shooting RAW, and I just press this. That is nuts. You'd never miss a shot, and it's still going. I just had to stop pressing it. If I choose image quality all the way to maybe just JPEG normal, actually, and then change the frame rate, so we can do 120 now, and then you hear this. That is crazy. And you have to, you know, I don't know how many shots I would have taken like that in that short frame of time. But that shows you how much frames you can capture with this camera. And we took this out to Venice Beach in LA just to test it out in the skate park and see what that looks like. And honestly, it does not miss. I mean, you can even pick out, you know, change the focusing to pick out the eye, for example, so, or tracking, for example, eye tracking or like human tracking on there. And that will pick up the people, and it just captures every single frame to the extent where you don't have to go through so much photos before you can pick the ones that you really want to share, but it does not miss. So here you're looking at 493 points face detection autofocus system. So again, if you're shooting video or, you know, looking at the live view or wherever, it just works really well. And you got 405 autofocus area when you got autofocus points. Refresh rate is good as well. So again, you are getting a ridiculous amount of spec on this camera. It just works really well. So for me, the things that are important is focusing on there, the ability to be able to just take it out of the bag, shoot on the go, for example, the file formats. And if I do need to shoot video, it's there as well. If you shoot 8K, we all know you can crop in afterwards, and it still give you really good detail because you're getting that 45.7 megapixel sensor on there. One thing that's also cool on this is when you take the lens off, you can actually change the settings as well to make sure that the actual shutter window in there is protected. So whilst you're changing lenses, protects the camera from like dust and all that stuff, which that's something that's missing on like a Lumix camera, for example. If you're not careful, you're gonna get dust on your sensor. Talking about those scenarios where it's the basketball shots, you do not miss any shots because you can easily switch from high frame rate to just simple shots where you actually know what you're getting. For example, you can just get individual shots. Candid shots work really well as well. This lens is actually really versatile. It's got really good depth of field with that 2.8 aperture on there, very fast lens. And then you got the skate park where people are moving and things happen like unplanned. You just don't know when they're going to start skating again, when they're going to stop, if they're going to do a trick, or you just don't know what's going to happen, if someone's going to come in front of your lens and block your shot. This works really well because I can just point it, look at what I'm doing, follow the action, the motion, and it takes those amazing shots that are very sharp, in focus. The colors look fantastic as well in terms of skin tone, especially when it's someone like a darker skin tone like me. It picks out those colors really well, which is something that I value when it comes to my cameras. With Sony cameras, there's a lot of tweaking I have to do post-processing to make sure that it gets the color skin tone right. And when it comes to stills, Lumix does a great job at that, which is one of the reasons why I use a Lumix camera for stills. But this camera does that well without having to do much tweaks at all. You can even shoot in JPEG and still get really good quality off that. There's a little that I can say about this thing like that's bad. Like I'll come to that in a second, and it's not the quality of the imagery, it's actually more to do with the way that I work the buttons. When it comes to fashion photography, so I did shoot a model as well. Works really well in terms of the lighting, working with the shadows and the way that the light comes in this car park that we went to shoot some photos. And even with her moving and stuff like that, moving, you know, changing position, different poses, it just grabs what I really wanted to do. One of the things that I didn't like is low light settings. When you start shooting, you know, around 12,000 plus ISO, then you start to get loads of grainy, noisy images. But obviously, it's not something that I normally shoot anyway. That was just for testing purposes. I love light, so when I'm shooting. I need a good amount of lighting anyway to shoot the stills that I want to shoot. But I think overall, this is versatile. It's a great camera, great piece of kit. And you're looking at around £3,999 to buy this on the market right now for just the body only, which is very similar to your Sony a7R V as well. So in fact, the competitor will be the Sony a7R V and perhaps the Z9, which is the big brother to this. The stack sensor on there really works really well for rolling shutter issue. They've kind of managed to fix that. Some magic trickery that they've done in there, which makes it really work. So again, and that blackout, no blackout feature on there, it's really good as well if you're shooting high frame rate. It means you got that right in front of your face, you're tapping away, and honestly, just works really well. Back to my issue with the buttons though, is having to always press and hold stuff before I can change things, because now I'm used to it because I've had it for a bit, but as the first time I was using it, I was just like, where's the button when I need to quickly change the ISO settings and stuff like that. So sometimes I end up just having auto ISO when I'm shooting out and about because I just can't be bothered to keep having to change that and finding that button. But that's something that's personal to me. You can probably change it and make it work for you. But I think overall, this is a great piece of kit, and yeah, I'm going to be very sad to give this camera back. It does a lot more than I've talked about. Like I said already, I keep drumming about this. You know, the video capability, being able to shoot handheld, for example, it's really good on here. And 8K at 60 frames per second, uncropped. That is ridiculous. So that's it for the Nikon Z8. In fact, I feel like I haven't really done it justice in terms of what it's capable of and what this can do in terms of the review. But I hope you've picked something from this and learned something from this in terms of if you're looking to buy one. But over to you. If you have any questions I haven't covered in this, drop them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer your questions. And yeah, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share it as well. I'll see you guys in the next one.